December 16, 2006, Madison Square Garden. The New York Knicks are hosting the Denver Nuggets in what should have been just another regular season game, but instead, it turned into one of the ugliest brawls in NBA history, coming just 2 years after the infamous Malice at the Palace incident. This brawl, which involved the Pacers and Pistons, led to some of the harshest punishments ever handed down by the league, including a season-long suspension for Ron Artest and $11 million in total fines to all players involved. The NBA thought these penalties would send a clear message to players that fighting would not be tolerated. But, as we'll see, that message didn't quite stick. Heading into the game, the Knicks were struggling with a record of 9-17, while the Nuggets were faring better at 13-9. The game was nothing special in the first half, with the Knicks trailing throughout. Despite this, they kept it close, even pulling within 2 points at one stage. But the Nuggets regrouped and built a 13-point lead at halftime. After the break, they continued to pour it on in the second half, going up by as much as 26 in the third. This effort was led by this man, Carmelo Anthony, who was the league's leading scorer heading into the game. This game continued his epic season, with him scoring 34 points. In the fourth, the Knicks cut the lead down to 10, but the Nuggets went on a run at the end to slam the door shut. In the final minute of the game, with the Nuggets up 19, things started to get testy. Knicks coach Isaiah Thomas was unhappy that Nuggets coach George Karl still had his starters on the floor, even with the game well in hand. Thomas felt it was disrespectful. It should be said that the Nuggets had their garbage time substitutes at the scorer's table, and they were going to go in the game at the next dead ball. In a bizarre move, Thomas told Nuggets star Carmelo Anthony not to go into the paint. This was essentially Thomas telling Melo to stop trying, even though they weren't even on the same team. George Karl later suggested that Thomas had directed the upcoming brawl, and while Thomas wasn't penalized for his role in the brawl, many writers criticized him for not trying to stop it. Some even suggested he was trying to resurrect the physical play of his old bad boy Detroit Pistons teams. With 1 minute 15 seconds left in the game, the fuse was lit. Knicks guard Marty Collins committed a hard foul on the Nuggets' J.R. Smith as he went up for a fast break dunk. The refs immediately called a flagrant 2 foul and ejected Collins. As Smith got up to confront Collins, Knicks guard Nate Robinson jumped in and started pushing and shouting at Smith. After Robinson threw a punch, Carmelo Anthony pushed Robinson, and Smith charged at Robinson, and the two tumbled into the photographers and fans in the front row before eventually being separated by teammates and coaches. But the fireworks were just beginning. Carmelo Anthony then marched over to Marty Collins and sucker punched Collins right in the face, dropping him to the floor. Despite Anthony immediately running away after doing this, Jared Jeffries, known to many as a mild-mannered player, tried to charge at Anthony, but tripped over his teammate Marcus Camby. Jeffries was then restrained by coaches and players before he could reach Melo, who eventually backpedaled all the way to the Nuggets bench. Once Collins got up from the ground after being literally sucker punched, he also tried to run down the court to get Melo, but was blocked by players and coaches. In the end, all 10 players on the court were ejected, and the Nuggets went on to win 123-100. NBA Commissioner David Stern reacted swiftly and forcefully. In a press conference, he said, "It is our obligation to take the strongest possible steps to avoid such failures in the future." Stern handed out some of the harshest penalties the league had ever seen for an on-court incident. 7 players were suspended for a total of 47 games. The suspended players lost a combined total of $1.2 million in salary. On top of that, the Knicks and Nuggets organizations were each fined $500,000 each. As the man who actually threw a punch, Carmelo Anthony faced the stiffest punishment, which was a 15-game suspension. This, at the time, was the 6th longest suspension in NBA history. Melo apologized to Collins a day after and opted not to appeal, saying he didn't want to be a further distraction to his team. But the damage this caused to Melo's reputation was extreme. Like I said earlier, he was the league's leading scorer and was only 22 years old. Some even said that he could be the face of the league in a few years. But after this incident, he faced immense backlash from media pundits, and his advertising partner, Northwest Airlines, even pulled his face off the cover of their magazines. To add to the drama, just 1 day after the brawl, the Nuggets pulled off a blockbuster trade to acquire Allen Iverson, who was the league's second leading scorer behind only Carmelo. The Nuggets looked like a super team on paper after acquiring Iverson, but the suspensions really hurt the team's ability to form chemistry together. And although they finished the regular season with a solid 45 wins, they were bounced in the first round by the San Antonio Spurs. The Knicks, meanwhile, stumbled to a 33-49 record and missed the postseason entirely. As for the main characters in this story, Isaiah Thomas was fired a few years later after having a disappointing run with the Knicks. In a funny turn of events, Carmelo Anthony was traded to the Knicks in 2011, 5 years after the Brawl. Looking back, there are some eerie parallels between the Knicks Nuggets fight and the earlier Malice at the Palace. Both brawls erupted in the closing seconds of a blowout loss for the home team, and both were sparked by a hard foul. In the case discussed in the video, an argument can be made that the brawl was somewhat provoked by the coaches. Nate Robinson even admitted in a later interview that he knew a hard foul was coming, saying, "We weren't going to let them keep dunking when they were up 20, and their starters were still in." But regardless of any provocation or context, the images from that night are still ugly and unfortunate. Punches thrown, players tumbling into the stands, even respected veteran referee Dick Bavetta bear-hugging players to try to restore order. It was not a proud moment for the NBA. The hefty fines and suspension sent a resounding message that such behavior would come with a heavy price. It's a message that, for the most part, has been heeded in the years since, with the closest thing to a brawl being Isaiah Stewart sprinting down the court at the GOAT LeBron James. But the scars from that night at Madison Square Garden remain. For the players involved, the teams, and the league itself, December 16, 2006 will always be remembered as a low point, a flashpoint of violence and poor judgment that nobody wants to see repeated. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Videos like these take a lot of time and effort to make, so your support is extremely appreciated. There will be more videos to come. To subscribe to see them all, and watch the video on the screen to learn about the crazy story of former NBA player Malice, whose gambling ways almost destroyed the NBA as we know it.